Welcome to the Gourds and Pomegranates podcast, talking common sense for church communications. Here's Hannah and Joe.
So we covered it a little bit in our websites episode and sort of what should a good church website look like, but it's worth just covering a little bit more detail about what is SEO. To start really simply with what it stands for, it's search engine optimization. It's the idea of optimizing your online presence, usually your website, for search engines. Ultimately, it really comes down to how high you're ranking specific pages for specific things people are searching for. And so we're asking the question today, should your church worry about SEO? And obviously we don't want you to worry about it. So it probably, should you be thinking about SEO? Should you at least be aware of it? Fundamentally, the important thing is to remember to tell Google, and we're going to talk about Google because other search engines kind of part and parcel, and increasingly we'd include AI tools within that. But for now, let's just think about Google to keep it simple. Yeah. So fundamentally, it's about telling Google who you are, what you do, where you are. That key information, which is probably already on your website, but we're just needing to make sure that it's actually available to Google, that it's correct. And so we'll cover that. But first of all, a really helpful first step is to think about your Google business listing as a church.
Yeah. So the thing you want to be looking for on Google is Google My Business, which is essentially if you've got a Google account where you can register your business, and we say business, but it's whether that is a commercial space, a cafe, a church, essentially any geographical pinpointed business. Actually, well, it can be any, it doesn't need to be just geographical, but it is essentially linking into then being able to find people and give them the information that they need. So Google My Business is when you search for a business, or obviously on Google, most of the time on the right-hand side should come up a little boxed section that has a logo, a map, a website listing, photos, and other key details such as contact, email, telephone numbers, and opening hours, and also Google reviews. Now, this is a really important thing to think about for churches, because actually that's what people are looking for, those key details. And yes, they can find it on your website, but having a Google My Business listing and having that section with all the up-to-date information will be so helpful for those people. And if it's out of date, if it's wrong information, really can put people off wanting to visit or engage with you. And critically, it's not only what's shown on the Google search results pages, but it's also going to appear on Google Maps. So how do we go about setting it up, and what do we need to include?
Yeah. So the first thing is to make sure that you have ownership of the listing. That is to say it's verified. So a lot of the time Google will add businesses or organizations into Google Business. It will essentially create a profile for you when it sees that information is available out there. So in order to actually make any changes or add to that, you need to have a verified profile. And that's pretty simple. You can just claim ownership, and then in order to verify, they will either give you a phone call, which will be automated so that you can confirm that that's the right phone number, or the traditional way of doing it is they'll send a little postcard or a letter with a code on it so you can confirm that way. Sometimes they get a bit fussy these days and they want you to do a little video which shows the location. Whichever method they ask you to do, it will lead you through it step by step. So it's not a difficult thing, and you only have to do it once, as long as you don't physically move location, in which case you'd have to re-verify. But once you've done that, it's essentially a form which will tell you the information it needs. Any information it's already picked up will already be there. So that's great. You don't have to worry about that. You can obviously check it that it's correct, but then you just go down the list and add to it. So it might be that it's got your church name and it's got the address, but it could be that the address is just ever so slightly wrong, or you just need to tweak the location on the map to get it just right. So you can do that. It might be that it's got an old phone number, so you can update that. Or maybe it has a phone number which is correct, but it doesn't have an email address. So as you go down the list, you just make sure that all the fields are filled out correctly. You can add opening hours there, which is always a little bit of an interesting one for a church, because what are technically our opening hours? Like, are we open from 10 to 12 on a Sunday, or are we open 24/7? You have to make that decision about what's practical. If you have people in the office, then maybe that makes that an easier thing. But yeah, that's a decision to make. But then as you go down that profile, you'll see that there are other things that you can add as well. So you can add in photos, you can add in just other little bits of information which are useful to have there. And there's this sort of conflict that, as Hannah said, people will find that information without having to go to your website. We want people to come to the website, but we don't want it just for the sake of it. We don't want people to go there just so that our monthly numbers are up. So if someone is coming to find the phone number, it's better for them to just find the phone number and call us, regardless of where they get that information from. You know, if they want further information, then your website should also be linked on the Google business profile, and they can click through it and find what they need.
Yeah, exactly. And an additional thing to think about, obviously, if you've made sure all of your details on your Google profile are correct, it's also making sure that they're the same across your social media platforms and even then written on your website as well, because Google wants to see that consistency so that it knows that all of these things are authentic, not just they're all kind of random, unofficial pages or accounts and stuff. So just make sure that everything is the same across wherever it's getting posted.
Yeah.
And you mentioned already adding photos. That's really important. And not just from a Googling it, but also of Google Maps, of that actually if someone's looking on Google Maps and they can see that this place has lots of photos, actually people do go, I mean, I do it. You know, you go and look at the pictures of a venue to see actually what's the parking like, which way do I need to come in for that? Or, oh, actually, yeah, let's have a wedding there or something. So
what's the makeup of the congregation? Because I think we seek to do that on the website. Obviously, we seek to have relatively accurate kind of aspirational pictures of who is in the church on a given Sunday. But having those different pictures that are maybe taken from people's phones that are on the Google Maps profile, on the Google business listing, will just give that different flavor. And it's just another source of truth. Just
something
on
else.
It really gives that confidence.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, you can kind of repurpose it. So if you've got people within your congregation taking a couple pictures and stuff, and you'd be like, oh, yeah, put it on Google Maps or something. But actually, can we put that on social? Because that's quite a fun picture of us at the barbecue or something. Which then also is a good thing of actually encouraging your congregation or visitors or people who are using your building. You know, that's not just on a Sunday, but if you've got a hall that's regularly used for birthday parties or clubs and groups and stuff, is encourage them to leave reviews and pictures. And actually, pictures are likely to be geotagged within the phones anyway. So it's not as if people have to really think about manually sort of putting it into Google Maps as such, because it'll automatically read it as that. And encouraging them as well to write something specific. So, you know, we had a great kids creche or, you know, a lovely hall for my family's birthday party, or it's good accessibility for wheelchairs, or it's not as if you have to walk up and down loads of stairs and stuff. Actually, that's really helpful at creating a broad view of the church rather than just, saw one recently and it literally was like 5 reviews and it was like, lovely service, good church. And you're like, cool, it's not really telling me anything. It's not telling Google anything, and it won't pick up those words. And so getting people to regularly, obviously don't have like the same people doing it once a year or something.
Yeah, it doesn't need like dozens of them, because Google's not stupid and it will look fake, and like people aren't stupid. But encouraging people from time to time to just say, oh, would you mind? Especially if it's something where someone has had a birthday party and then they've emailed the church office to say, look, we really appreciated you were so helpful with us. The location was great, all of that. Then ask them to put that as a Google review. That's certainly what I do with my clients when they give me a good testimonial, is to say, great, could you just copy and paste that? Here's a link to the Google review, submit it. And then it obviously looks good because everyone can see it. Yeah.
And actually the reality is that that's likely the thing that people will be looking for churches, for new people. And that's where people want to see reviews from the public of, I don't have a relationship with the church already. Can I trust these people, kind of thing? What's it like?
Yeah. It helps because actually people are coming from a place of non-trust, probably, if they don't know anything about you. So it just helps to bridge that gap, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the Google business listing may not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of SEO, but actually, if the whole aim is to help people to find the information that they're looking for, you know, really it's the first step, because it's where people are going to find that information if we're looking for anything, really.
Yeah. So moving on to SEO proper, as it were, and thinking particularly about your church website right now. First of all, we'll just go through a few key things of terminology. Again, nothing to worry hugely about, but if you're looking at SEO, you'll hear these terms. It's helpful to know what they are. First of all, the idea of metadata. So that is data about the web page, which isn't necessarily shown on the web page to people, but it's data that Google will see and use to help categorize you and potentially help to rank you. So the two key ones that you want to worry about here are the title tags and then something called the meta description. So the title tag is, as it sounds, the title of the page. And it's really helpful. I mean, it's essential to have this filled out. Most web software will do this automatically. That doesn't mean that it will necessarily do a good job of it. So it might be that the title automatically generated is something like page 1, your church name, which isn't great because page 1 doesn't tell Google anything. Same with the meta description, that it may well generate it automatically, but doesn't mean it's good. And that meta description is essentially the paragraph of text that you see underneath the title on the search listing page. Now, both of these things are of limited importance because Google's not stupid. You can't game the system in the way that you used to be able to sort of 15, 20 years ago, but they're still useful. So make sure that they are clear. They show Google what the page is about, but also they show the people who are looking at those search results what it's about. So do include keywords there. And the keywords, primarily, it's not something you have to worry hugely about because primarily it's going to be your church name. It's going to be your town name, which may well already be in the church name. And it might be that it will be slightly different on different pages. So if you've got a what's on page, it might say something like church activities in town name. If you've got a page which is about the Sunday services, it might say Sunday church services at church name. And then a meta description will be around that. So it's not complicated. Don't overthink it. And churches don't have to go to the nth degree on SEO because it's just not that useful to spend our time on. And if people are looking for the church, as long as you've done these basics right, they're probably going to find it.
But I'd also say that actually do make sure that you put in your church name and your town like a couple points within your website and on various pages, because again, I was looking at a church website and they didn't have it on there. And actually I was thinking, how is Google meant to take any of this information? Because actually you've not pinpointed where you are.
Yeah. And so leading on to the rest of the page content itself, those keywords do need to be in there. But what we don't need to do is, again, it worked 20 years ago. It doesn't work now. We don't need to stuff the page full of keywords and full of, are you looking for a perfect Christian church in Church Town? Church Town Christian Church provides a good church Christian service for Christians in Church Town. That's not how SEO works anymore. And it's terrible and it will put people off. I don't have to imagine because I see it far too often. Yeah, Google gets it. You don't have to spell it out that much, but that does mean like we should still include those keywords. So yeah, don't stress about it.
Yeah.
Just spell it out in terms of if you've got a page which is talking about your children's activities, mention children's activities, mention the church name, mention the town name, talk about the sorts of things that you do. And by doing that, rather than just having a picture or a picture of a flyer on the page, just by explaining it in terms of text on the page, you are already probably doing all that you need to do there. As an extension of that, with the sort of critical information, so like going back to the kids example, include the time of that kids group, like because it's not just about Google, it's about your users. And that is the key driver with SEO generally, but especially for churches. It's about thinking through from the user point of view, what do they want? What do they need to see? And what do you want them to see? And making sure that stuff's there. So there's no point spending all this time telling them how great the toddler group is if they don't actually know when it's on. You're making life harder for them. And it might be that they'll get in touch and say, this sounds great. When is it? The likelihood is, knowing the habits of people,
they're not going
they won't, because it might be they can't make it. They don't know. So they're not going to put themselves out there. Another thing, they're moving a little bit away from the text content and that side of things, is images. Now, we talked a bit about image sizing on the church websites episode, so we don't need to go too much into it, but it is an important thing to make sure that your images are sized correctly and optimized so that they're not huge, basically, because that is something which is used as part of Google's ranking algorithm, which obviously no one knows all the ins and outs of, but when there are things that you know are the case, then it's worth doing them. So if you have huge images that are way too big for the page, then that is going to cause your page to load slower. And that is something which is going to frustrate people. They'll use it less. And it all goes into that feedback cycle of Google are less likely to put your web pages near the top of the search rankings.
Yeah.
But also using relevant images as well. Like there's no point having stock imagery. It's not going to help you on Google by just having random stuff on there, but it's also not going to help people to be served by your web page.
But also, and you have literally just mentioned this, but I do think it's an important thing to emphasize, don't put posters up instead of text. I know you just said that for the rest, but actually having, like, if it's in for an event, just having the poster up isn't that interesting. Like actually have pictures of past events or something. And it just, I know that's
for sure.
About sizing,
by all means include it. By all means include a graphic of your poster. And again, we've said it before, not a picture that you've taken of your poster, but an export of the graphic of your poster, because it will add visual variety. But not that on its own, because you need the text there, but also not that as the only image, because there are going to be other things which will illustrate it better. But it is worth including because it just fleshes out the content a little bit more. It adds a bit of visual variety, and it also gives people the opportunity to copy it, to save it, to share it to social media if they want to do that. So worth including.
But not just only that.
And the last thing on images is to think about alt text. Now, this is something which will help for SEO, but it's also something that's worth doing for accessibility. For those that have issues with their eyesight, include alt text so that they know what is in the images when their software reads it out to them. So that, again, don't overthink it, but a simple description of what is in the photo. It could be that you use an AI tool to help with this, especially if you're doing lots of images at once, but just describe what's in the photo. And the chances are that will also help from a search perspective, because you are telling Google what is in that image and who the image is useful for. And it's all just goes together into helping Google to know who the page is for and where to rank it, as well as how high. And that really is the basics covered of SEO. It's all about putting users first. And that's what Google keep banging on about, is about users first. And they will see that, like, Google gets a ton of data about how people are using websites. And so if they see that people are spending time on the page or that having their questions answered, they're happy with that. That's something they're happy to push the page further. And that can tie into blogs as well. Like, obviously, we've done a whole episode on blogs, so we don't need to talk too long about it. I wouldn't suggest doing a blog for a church purely for the angle of getting more search traffic. Generally, I think it's going to be a hard one to hit. And it's something where you could spend a lot of time and effort on it for no real results. But if you are producing a blog and it's helpful for you as part of your strategy to do that, then make sure that you get these basics right for there as well. So your title, your meta description, alt text on images, and including the keywords. This isn't like a whole website thing. People often think of SEO in terms of, I need to get my website to the top. Google doesn't see it that way. Google sees web pages, and each blog post is a web page. So you need to do it for every part of your website.
Yeah.
The last thing with your own website then is to think about Google Search Console. And that is, along with Google Analytics, it's another tool for getting data about your site. But Search Console specifically tells you how people are using Google search to come to your site. So you see the keywords that you're ranking for. You see the pages which are getting search traffic. It's not the be all and end all, but actually if you are trying to increase search traffic in a certain area or rank for a certain term, like it might be that you have an event every year that you find you're getting people from search. And so you just want to lean into that a bit more. Signing up with Google Search Console, making sure that the site is gathering data there, that can just be another useful tool to sort of see what's working and areas that you might be able to improve.
It's also worth thinking about other sources of information on the web, which in the SEO world are generally referred to as off-page. Now, this means being added to other sites which people are using, either because they rank well or that they're well known. And this could be something like Find a Church or a denomination-specific site like the Church of England's A Church Near You. If you're part of a denomination or an association or a group of churches, make sure that your details are on their site and make sure that they're up to date. And where possible as well, be able to link to your own website. Really helpful in pointing to the main place you want people to go. And if you can't add your own details in yourself, if that sort of feature isn't amendable by users, actually just making sure of what's already being put up and where else it might be.
Yeah.
And these obviously do all need to be up to date as well. So do inform the owner of those sites. And even, you might have to consider having a promoted listing to enable more information to be added to your profile if necessary.
Yeah. And generally, if you do have a promoted listing, so it means that you can have a longer profile with more
Yeah.
details, as well as having to control yourself, but you'll generally appear higher up the list. All of this is about making sure people can find what they're looking for. And it's just keeping the users first. So it's having that common sense check for your site. And we've said this already, just make sure that what is there is correct. And actually, somewhat depressingly, that will already put you ahead of the curve because there are so many sites out there where it's missing information, where the information that's there is incorrect or out of date. So it's a common sense thing, but put it into your calendar, whether it's sort of quarterly or a couple of times a year, to just check what's there.
And actually doing it a couple times a year or something, actually it just makes the job of doing it a lot easier rather than, I'm supposed to be starting from scratch. It's a bit of a job, but actually just keeping on top of it rather than doing it once and then never touching it again.
Yeah. So be aware of SEO, be aware of other sites that are linking to your church info, be aware of your church info on social media, but certainly not something that we want you to worry about. And if you do have any questions, then you can reach out to us at hello@gppodcast.uk. And we will be back for the very last episode of this series, can you believe it, where we are going to be talking about storytelling. So join us next week for that.
Gourds and Pomegranates is brought to you by Joe Gallant and Hannah Fleming Hill. You can find episode transcripts and contact the show via gppodcast.uk.